What's up, everyone? All right, rookie draft is done, and we're back to take a look at SuperFlex Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, top 12. 2023 draft, come and gone, says Lowski. And what did you think overall of this rookie class?
Well, people seem to be disappointed in it, but we're in rookie draft season, so people are now hot for the rookies. All the warts that we thought all go away for a couple weeks. I think there's plenty of good players, and you and I have had this discussion about upside and this guy's not going to win your league, so it's not a good pick. And my philosophy is in your rookie draft, if you can pick up an every week starter that's plug and play, and you never have to guess on them in the first round, that's a win. So of course, like every draft, there's a couple top heavy guys deep at quarterback, but for the first round wide receivers and some of the guys that landed on day two, at the running back position, if I can get them in my flex spot in some of these deep league we play, I'm going to be satisfied. So my expectation has been lowered, but I'm satisfied with what the options are if I have some picks.
Well, I'm going to give you from the layman's terms that, we were sold a bill of goods on this draft last year, right? We come in, everybody's like, 2023, you sell your picks in 2022. It's horrible. The class is much better next year. And you know what? The grass is always apparently a lot greener on the other side, because as the reality of the 2023 NFL draft came together, this is one of the thinnest drafts I can remember. I believe, and I'm going to say this straight up, bust city all over the place. This is going to be one of those, one of those drafts where people like, you remember the one where like Sony Michel and Miles Sanders and all these guys were at the top of the draft, and it was just bust city. Or Josh Doctson. There have been so many years like this where all of the guys, I got bad feelings about it, says.
Yeah, I mean, I don't fully agree, because the guys that, I understand what you're saying. Josh Doctson, I think we came off like that Odell Beckham year, so we have these expectations. I mean, when you look at some of the wide receivers, for example, like JSN, Jordan Addison, and Zay Flowers and Quentin Johnson, you could find problems with all of them, but if you get wide receiver 18 to 30, again, I know that you don't get excited about guys unless they're top 5 geek, but we play a lot of leagues where there's 3 receivers and a flex. And if I can get a pick that's going to actually put someone in my lineup, I'll keep saying it over and over again. Fine. The elite upside's not there, but I think there's some good NFL players in here.
Yeah. So, listen, I'm sure there are, but
overall, look at last year, right? Last year you had Chris Olave, you have Garrett Wilson, you have those elite guys that you like. So compared to last year, right?
There were last year, obviously, and it worked out really, really well. And like I said, this year, I think there are some very, very clear tiers, and we're going to get into that. We're going to break down the top 12. Got some obvious ones at the top. There are some extreme tier breaks, and I'm going to have some recommendations of, if you haven't picked, we're maniacal, right? We're maniacal. We're drafting leagues right now. The second some of these dynasty leagues, the second the NFL draft ends, they're like, all right, start a draft. Rookies, let's go.
We used to make fun of that because we used to like to do our drafts at like a month later, but I think we're now considered like wussies if we don't start a draft. The norm is to start your draft the minute the NFL draft. Like Saturday night, once the last pick is made, it's like the button gets clicked with no clock. So
I'm gonna tell you, I generally don't think that is a good way to do it.
Well, it's not good or bad. It's equal. It's like either you like drafting with uncertainty or you like drafting with more information. Now, everyone's in the same boat. If you do a little, I mean, there's players that you're going to get now at 2.5 that when we do our draft for the league that I run in July, they're going to be going at 1.8. And vice versa. You're going to, whoever that, Zay Flowers, who goes at like 1.9, 1.10, 1.11 right now, something might happen. I mean, aside from injury, and he might end up being a player that falls down the board. I mean, you just don't know. So I like drafting with uncertainty because we do the legwork, but I understand why. I mean, listen, I like some leagues that wait and some leagues that go early, and that's what we have. We're in so many leagues, it doesn't matter at this point.
So I'm going to call these the early rankings, because I do think a lot will change as training camps hit, and I actually think the area where we're going to see the most lift is going to be at the running back position when we start to get reports that, this guy looks good or that guy looks good. And there are some running backs I want to talk about that might actually fall outside of the initial top 12 rankings that we do right now. that I think can find their way in there later on. So I definitely want to save a little segment at the end of this breakdown for that. And of course, we're talking with Alan Seslowsky at Alan Seslowsky on Twitter,
on all socials,
all the socials. And I am Kevin Allen, IK the Geek at Football Geek, and we're talking Dynasty Fantasy Football, what we love. And let's get into the rankings. Let's get into the top of your rookie draft. Now we're talking SuperFlex, but you can just remove these wide quarterbacks if you're looking at non-SuperFlex standard Dynasty rankings. But right at the top of the board, I think in SuperFlex there are 3 names that people are considering, and there's the obvious Bijan Robinson, his landing spot, elite, couldn't be better in Atlanta. Couldn't have asked for more.
Yeah, smooth landing. I mean, that's as good as it comes. I mean, I did a redraft, mock draft yesterday that people took seriously. I was with a bunch of like experienced fantasy players, and I took Bijan Robinson as the first running back off the board in redraft. Like I said, this reminds me of Zeke Elliott's rookie year, Saquon Barkley's rookie year, where you can't just say, oh, it's a rookie getting up to speed. Atlanta took him, top 8 draft cap. I mean, there's no reason not to consider Bijan 1 or 2 in your rookie drafts.
Absolutely. And give me a reason why you might go 2, because you've been a big advocate of Anthony Richardson as the number 1 overall potential dynasty asset in SuperFlex in this season's draft.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. It was illustrated yesterday. A really smart player that I interact with on Twitter, he does not like his fantasy team and it needs a rebuild. So he didn't want to take Bijan at 1. So what he did was, I think he made a mistake. He sold pick 1.1 for like rookie pick 110, a bunch of 2s, and like, just some other stuff that didn't make sense to me. And he goes, well, Bijan's not going to help me. I'd rather take the dart throws. And I said, just don't take Bijan then. Take Anthony Richardson, right? And he goes, well, I consider that too, but I'd rather have a lot of picks. I said, he's just thinking about it wrong. Those are low probability hits. If you don't like Bijan, take Anthony Richardson. He's a good rebuild because he's a long-term shelf life guy. If Anthony Richardson's bad, geek, he's got 3 or 4 years to be bad. He's top 5 draft pick, high upside, high floor with the rushing. So that would be a situation. If you don't think you're even a year or 2 away from winning, take the quarterback at 1-1 if you can't get the fair value for Bijan.
I mean, that trade sounds horrible that fellow did.
It was bad. I'm looking it up as we're talking.
Yeah, it's even worse when you think about how weak the second half of even your rookie draft, even first-round picks are, and it just drops significantly from there. So, like, trading for a bunch of stuff, especially this year.
You ready for it?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, so he traded 1.1, and this is what he got in return. 1.7, 1.10, 2.1, 2.9, 2.10, 2.7. So
the ultimate sucker deal.
Two 1s, 2 late 1s, and 4 2s, including, yeah.
Oh my! I cannot believe this. So, on a normal year, this is not a bad trade. So, like, if you didn't fully understand how the drafts are and how the cadence of them goes, all right, okay, I can accept it. Especially if the later half of the first round was like last year, where you're still getting players that you love. This year, man, the drop off is so significant, and you've got this tier. I don't like it at all. I hate that trade for that person.
Yeah, here, if you want to pop this into I just shared my screen. There it is, right there. That's the trade.
Oh, unfortunate names in there. So
no, John doesn't care. He's proud of the trade. Listen, he posted it on Twitter. It's not like he sent it to me in private.
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I get it, 107. I understand why you would be tempted to accept this, because looking at it here, it's like, oh wow, I'm getting 2 firsts.
But you almost it's 3 firsts, because 2.1 is like
you know what? That many players. I would, if it was last year's draft, I would have liked it a lot more. Let's just put it like that. Like almost every other draft. So 99% of the time, I like that trade. Let's put it like that. Mm-hmm. But this year, and this is sort of one of the themes here, the drop off is significant. There's a tier break, 6 picks in, and I'm going to give you a recommendation what to do if you're picking after pick 6. But yeah, I think number 1 overall is very obviously Bijan, although an argument can be made for Anthony Richardson, number 1. Of course, Richardson, we have, Seslowsky, you have, I have as well, as my number 2 play. I want you to tell me why Richardson is such a good pick this year because a lot of people would say, "Hey, this is a very raw quarterback. The arm is unproven. The accuracy horrible. Like his throwing is not good. It's not good."
Go look back at the scouting reports before he played an NFL snap for Cam Newton and Josh Allen. They mirror what you're talking about here. Now, those are two success stories. You could find stories that go the other way, but here it's not just that he has a high floor because of the rushing. It's that it's not that he has a high ceiling because the rushing, has a high floor because the rushing. And as my friend Jordan McNamara, Jordan, he comes on the podcast all the time, said is that Anthony Richardson, one of the other key below the surface indicators is he doesn't take sacks, and that correlates directly into fantasy production. 3rd and 8, he's not getting sacked for a loss of 8. He's turning that into a 3 and 4 yard gain. Juxtapose that with like Joe Burrow, who takes a lot of sacks, and that's why he hasn't reached that super high elite tier in redraft. Obviously, we love his weapons, all that stuff, but Anthony Richardson is almost too big to fail, and his coach Shane Steichen, who coached Jalen Hurts over at in the Eagles, said that a couple things that you like. He said, one, I envision using him similar to how we used Jalen Hurts in his first season as a starter. And he goes, in my judgment, players don't learn by sitting on the bench. They learn by playing. So that leads you to believe that anything short of this guy is just like the worst player we've ever, what the hell were we thinking? He's playing week 1.
Yeah. Good draft capital. I love the coach and the Jalen Hurts connection. That is.
And the willingness to shove him in there and understand he could probably fail right away and he'll still be good for fantasy football.
I think a lot of people don't really fully appreciate how much coaching affects particularly the quarterback position. Just take a look at what happened with Daniel Jones with the Giants this year, bringing in Dable and just having, the Josh Allen sort of mentor coming in to help him out. So maybe we'll see some of that here. Love the situation for Richardson. So I will ask you this question, though I know the answer, which is why not Young or Stroud? They were both taken ahead of Richardson.
As far as for fantasy football,
why aren't they ranked number 1 or number 2?
Yeah, it's because the rushing upside, the off the charts athleticism, the pocket, all the warts that are on Stroud and Bryce Young. You've pointed out many times that not so much the height, but the BMI for Young. I mean, these guys are going to be good NFL players, solid, but I don't think they present the floor ceiling combination. Richardson playing indoors with Jonathan Taylor, like it almost has that RG3 and Alfred Morris combination to it where they're both feeding off each other. It's if you want to go safe, you could go with those guys, but because you're right, there is more of a chance that Richardson is just terrible and goes down the route of Zach Wilson. Obviously, that would be the worst case scenario. So I just think when you look at the floor ceiling combination, and obviously those other two guys are very good picks. If someone did it, I wouldn't laugh them off the stage. I wouldn't say, hey, but most people they want that high upside, but they don't realize that he has the high floor too.
I just thought of something. You and I are in a Dynasty rookie draft right now.
We're in a bunch of them.
Throw that up on the screen here so we can have a visual in the background. How's that sound?
I love it.
Why don't I do that? We're in a Dynasty rookie draft right now.
Hey, by the way, is there any do you even see a case for putting Young or Stroud ahead of Anthony Richardson?
Yes.
Given Oh, you do? Okay, I don't even see the case.
I'm going to make the case for that because there is a case for it. Hey, and isn't this fun? You guys can kind of look at a Dynasty startup draft happening live in the background.
Hey, while you're doing that, I just need to flick this light off. It's flickering right here.
Go ahead. But I'm gonna talk a little bit here about there is a scenario where Bryce Young should be taken ahead of Richardson, and here's what it is. So Richardson has a floor issue, meaning that Richardson is more likely to fail as a quarterback than maybe someone like Bryce Young. Bryce Young being number 1 overall. Bryce Young having that sort of pedigree of all the coaches, all the staff saw him and they said he's the best guy. He's got the brains and all of that. He doesn't have the rushing upside, so he doesn't Bryce Young doesn't bring the elite. Probably, going to be a top 6 quarterback to you.
Put it back up on the screen so we can watch.
Yeah, so he doesn't have that. But what he does, bring is a much higher floor. So if I need a QB2, if I've got Josh Allen, if I've already got Mahomes, I've already got Jalen Hurts, and I just need a safe QB2 that I kind of, hey, I need somebody I can plug in. I need a Kirk Cousins level guy here, and I cannot take a risk with someone like Richardson who, after the 1 or 2 year window with the lack of throwing skills, he might, he could fizzle out. That happens with those kind of guys on occasion.
I'm so shocked that you're thinking this way, given how you think about like, hey, I want to win the draft on every pick.
I do, which is why I've got Richardson first. I think there is a scenario where you're on a certain type of team that is built to win. You need a QB2 right now. You've already got Trey Lance on there, and you don't know what the hell he's up to.
Both of Young and Stroud, I mean, just look at the weapons around them. It's not good. I mean, you're a little more excited about Carolina's weapons because Houston's are so bad.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Robert Woods is your wide receiver one. I mean, of course, they'll keep improving the team. But listen, Houston's not been like an ideal organization. They don't even have their first-round pick next year. Remember, Geek, they traded up to get Will Anderson. So it's not like they can even get So if they're the worst team in the league this year and they have that number 1 overall pick, right? It goes to freaking Carolina the Cardinals. They can't even get Marvin Harrison so it's not like it's going to get better than this it is right now for Stroud. It was such a bad move to go get Will Anderson. So at least with Young, you could tell yourself a story where they're probably going to not be that bad, but I don't know. I don't like the weaponry around them.
By the way, it's not like Carolina has a great wide receiver room either. Like, Terrace Marshall is the number 1. Like, come on.
Well, they got Jonathan Mingo in the second round, who we like. He's a big receiver. Adam Thielen looked bad, but at least he can catch touchdowns. And DJ Shark at least is someone you could throw to deep down the field.
Wait, you're taking my boy Terrace Marshall out he's the no.
I mean, I like Terrace Marshall, but Jonathan Mingo might be better, man. He's, big wide receiver. He's got similar draft capital to Terrace Marshall. It's going to be an actual battle. I mean, they drafted him. Well, you can't say to replace Terrace Marshall. That's not true.
I don't. I think, they need
it's more long term with the other guys that are sort of patch plays. But
let me put it like this. I think there is a strong enough art. So you and I agree in super. There is a dearth of just bodies at quarterback that are acceptable right now. If you're in a SuperFlex league, everybody's hurting for Most teams are. They're hurting for quarterbacks. There's only maybe 10 or 11, like I would call them elite quarterbacks, and every team needs 2. So people are hurting for quarterbacks, and this is why Young and Stroud are still 3 and 4 in the rankings, right? They went where they should in this draft over here. You should take them there. But I can make an argument that if somebody wanted to say, you know what, I don't need that style of quarterback right now. I need I can make an argument for Jahmyr Gibbs all day in any one of those spots. Like if somebody were to say, let me take a first round pedigree, upside of Jamal Charles, downside of sort of like a Reggie Bush type player in Jahmyr Gibbs ahead of Young or Stroud, I don't have an issue with it, but I do just philosophically prefer quarterbacks.
Yeah, Chad Parsons from Under the Helmet. I really like his work too, and he has Gibbs ahead of those 2 QBs. He might even have him number 2 before the quarterbacks. I'd have to take a look. I don't want to misrepresent his work, but he has him really high for all the reasons you just said. You and I had some discussions about Gibbs before the draft, and you rightfully have concerns at 199-pound running back. And sure, we can make the Jamal Charles or the CJ Spiller analysis, but this is something I came up with, or that I was just thinking through. It's like, all right, this is an elite pass-catching weapon. They took him at pick 12. Just because he's got the letters RB next to his name, we're a little dubious of him, right? Now, if he had WR next to his name and he was 199 pounds and had the pass-catching pedigree that he had and he was picked at pick 12, we would be jumping over each other to try to draft him, even ahead of JSN. So forget about those 2 little letters. He's not going to be – that's why they have David Montgomery to do the grinding work. He is more of a wide receiver, offensive weapon in this offense. That's why they drafted him.
I want a Bijan. In other words, I want the 3-round – get me the goal line carries. I want the touchdowns type of running back as the ideal. So in order for Jahmyr, and this is the size issue. In order for Jahmyr Gibbs to really justify. I mean, it's a crazy pick 12. I can't believe he went there.
All right, but he did. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and
Yeah.
we all can't, like, one of the most common questions you get on a podcast. What was your biggest surprise of the draft? It was freaking pick 12, Jahmyr Gibbs. Everyone, there was two big surprises in the draft. That one and Will Levis falling to the second round, okay? But he's there. We have to, like, get past that and be like, this is better draft capital than Travis Etienne had. Let me ask you this. Travis Etienne or Gibbs in Dynasty right now?
Oh man, yeah, I think it's Etienne, but maybe not. Like Gibbs, there's an argument there. He has the better draft capital. I know. Yeah, I think it's still Etienne, but there's some. I can make an argument that Etienne has shown not much reception prowess and sort of a lack of work being given to him in an area that scores well for fantasy, whereas Gibbs is pretty locked into at least the receptions component of the job. I worry about Gibbs being sort of like what Swift has been, which has been kind of disappointing so far throughout his career, like the occasional pop-off game, but not enough consistency to really make you happy, and lots of injuries due to the size.
Yeah, I mean, Travis Etienne, I think, is going to improve his pass catching. I don't want to get too off track. We're doing rookie rankings, but I would project an uptick in pass catching for him this year, being that they drafted Tank Bigsby to do more of the grinding work, and Bigsby is a big boy. He's gonna take that James Robinson role and allow Travis Etienne to be more of a weapon. But yeah, I mean, we were talking about Gibbs.
Yeah, let's stay on.
And you and I agree. He is the pick after the three quarterbacks.
Definitely. Okay. So all right, let's get into the first wide receiver, Jackson Smith in Jigma, and he comes off as 1.6 on the board. And for me, I have a couple of things I want to really go over with this player, but tell me a little bit about the player and the fit for him in Seattle.
Anyone looking at the board right now will also notice, before we talk about JSN, is that there's two tight ends taken. Now, Dalton Kincaid, we'll get to the tight ends when we do, but this is a super tight end premium league. That's why. So anyone just looking at the visual, there's a reason why you have to start two tight ends. JSN, he elite prospect at Ohio State, right? Slot receiver, first receiver off the board, goes to a perceived situation in Seattle where he's going to be have a lack of production in year one. That could be true, but remember thinking back to CeeDee Lamb when he was drafted and Amari Cooper was in his peak, and everyone's like, well, it's Amari Cooper's team. What happens? A year later, less than a year later, he emerges. Now, the problem for JSN is that you're going to have to be patient. For obvious reasons. You have the running game that Pete Carroll wants to run the ball, and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett were both top 12 receivers last year. So it's going to be a slow roll. But I think people are going in eyes wide open, and with Tyler Lockett basically being 30-plus years old, 31 years old, it's more of a next year play. But because he's the first wide receiver off the board, and he was this elite prospect, I mean, if you could be patient, it's a good pick. He'll probably be, say, inside your top 15 wide receivers for dynasty startups next year, maybe even this year.
And I hate being patient.
I know, me too. I'm not patient.
I don't like players who go into situations where they're not going to play a lot, and that that is a problem with the first round players, as we'll get into, not just JSN, but I think the thing going for JSN is Lockett is really, really old. And so, you're probably 1 or 2 seasons away from him retiring, or at least taking a step back. There's also the possibility, I don't think it's a problem. I think the style of wide receiver that DK Metcalf is in Seattle won't interfere with JSN too much.
Let me ask you this, though. No one's even entertaining this possibility, but Tyler Lockett's a good player. If Seattle takes that next step, as a lot of people are projecting, and let's say they get to the NFC Championship game this year, right? They have a good season and win a couple playoff games. The NFC is wide open. What happens if Seattle re-signs Tyler Lockett to a 1-year deal because he's still playing at a high level? Now you're in the same situation.
Yeah, you're burned for year 2. That's what I'm saying. I don't like the waiting because it could be 2 years of waiting. And then it's like, man, I've been waiting with this guy. Right. You knew Metcalf was always going to be there. And and so now he's like the WR3 or at some point.
Even the 2. Even the 2.
But you just get bad production. This is one of the problems with this draft. Wait, there's more. There's more of these guys. This isn't it. So, but again, JSN talent-wise apparently is really, really good. Had a good year. I think his story's a little weird because his best season wasn't this one. It was the year before.
Let me ask you this, Geek. right now, if today, as we know what we have on the board, if the Tennessee Titans says we've traded Ryan Tannehill and Will Levis is starting quarterback, at this pick right here, are you taking JSN or are you taking Will Levis?
I'm taking Levis all day, and it's not even a question.
How about with Gibbs? Gibbs or Levis? If we, under those circumstances, we know that he's starting.
I'm taking Gibbs.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So that would be the differentiator. And by the way, if somebody wanted to take, the problem is we don't know if Levis is going to start this year or ever. Like, we don't know. But yes, if he was the starter and he was the first round draft capital, I'm taking a quarterback ahead of a wide receiver. Wide receivers have a higher bust rate and easier replacement for me than running backs are, and running backs have. So a first round running back, unacceptable. A first round running back, that's a lock button in other words,
they're highly insulated. If you're a first round running back, you're almost guaranteed to have one top 12 season. I mean, even Trent Richardson had a top 12 season. Najee Harris, he was running back 3 his rookie year. He was picked in the 20s. So no matter what happens, you're going to get 2-3 opportunities if you're a first-round running back, even if it goes sideways for you. Because what we know about running back position, of course it's skill-based, but it's more opportunity-based than skill-based. It's
all opportunity, and so for me, I weigh a running back first-round pick. For a team to take a running back in the first round today, they're bucking all kinds of trends, right? Because the accepted truth out there is that running backs don't matter that much. You can get them later. You shouldn't waste your early picks on these guys. They don't cost you as much as an NFL franchise either. They don't cost much. Like, you can get a running back right now. If you want if you want Leonard Fournette, you can get it for $1 million. Like, you could vet minimum. There's guys out there. They're always available. So for a team to take a running back, not just in the first round, but ahead of first round wide receivers, means they must have them evaluated super high. You will get opportunity with these guys. So yeah, I push the wide receivers after the running backs. Give me Will Levis in that scenario ahead of JSN. But in the case of this draft and for the purpose of this ranking, since we don't know with Levis, I still will put JSN here. Actually, I think he went in the correct spot in this draft.
I think one of the more interesting guys to rank, well, they're all interesting because with the next 3 receivers, Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, and Zay Flowers, I'm just curious, what order would you take them in? So forget our board here because it's a little skewed with the tight end premium, although Dalton Kincaid, I have no problem if anybody wants to take him at any point in the first round after the players we just named are off the board. But with the rest of the receivers, how do you order them?
So, there's all kind of, I obviously took Quentin Johnson in this draft that you're looking at here. So that was my next man up. I would have taken JSN ahead of him. And I felt like I almost forced it. I didn't feel great about the pick, says.
Yeah,
I felt almost forced into it.
Dude, there's people like, I respect a lot. I respect the Dynasty nerds a lot. They have Quentin Johnson as a second-round rookie pick value. I think that's way off. And they even acknowledge that that's not how rookie drafts are going to go. They told their audience, they said, hey, if you want Quentin Johnson, you have to take him in the middle of the first round, which I agree with. But their evaluation of him was they were scared off of him. So I'm with you. I would take him even ahead of JSN. I would have no problem with it. I'm not sure if I would do that, but I have no problem if anyone does that.
Here's my thing. At some point, you've got to respect draft capital. And am I going to start reaching for second and third round wide receivers or third or fourth round running backs at this point in a draft? Like guys who did not go in the first round, but a third rounder. Like, if you're looking at running backs, there are names that are interesting that went later in the draft. There's, Kendry Miller in a good situation to the Saints, really interesting. Charbonnet went before him to a horrible, so I don't get that. So there are names that went, but to me, I found in Dynasty, I've been doing Dynasty a long time, and I want to throw an interesting question at you in a second. I got one, I got a good one for you. But I found that in Dynasty, you've got to respect the draft capital. These teams are evaluating these players, and if you get too cute, you're better off trading down. So like when you get to this spot, I tried to trade down from this spot. There was no takers, nothing. Cause I think it's very obvious in the room that you've dropped a tier. Listen, you say it as if everybody knows it.
Well, here. And this is Dynasty advice that's been given out over the weekend that I have a big problem with. And you just perfectly identified it. It's like, you could try to trade down, but people that are playing in rookie drafts right now, they're very sharp. I mean, there's very rarely a donkey. This is the days of the office league, bill from accounting being in your league. They almost don't exist in Dynasty, maybe in redraft, but everybody knows that once you hit that pick, that they just want to let the wide receiver fall to them. They don't want to. They don't want to pick one. They want to take one, as my friend Jordan always says.
I disagree in a sense, and here's where I disagree. I don't want to assume that everybody around me is so knowledgeable or has the same opinion as I do.
Of course, you should try to do it, but what I'm just saying is, don't be surprised when there's no takers.
That's fine. Yes, and I agree there, especially when the board is live, like what we're seeing here. So the first piece of advice I'm giving out, guys, people love the pick more than they really place a player name to the pick. So if you're not currently drafting, if you're in a league and you're sitting on pick 107, 108, 109, I want you to start right now before your draft comes up. If you agree, if you want to get it moved, you are not going to be able to get that pick moved when the draft board is live because the people are looking at the names at that point, and the names are unsexy, especially when you get to 1-7 or 1-8. I think it's past the Will Levis because there'll be somebody who wants to trade for Will Levis or take that guy. So it gets unsexy. You want to be trading that pick now. Just say, yeah, hey, here's 1.8 and this for an upgrade player. So I'd be looking at, 1.8 and, like a name that somebody might like to upgrade that name, right? So let's say it was Deontay Johnson. Do you give 1.8 and Deontay Johnson for Stephon Diggs or something that?
Okay, I see what you're saying. Here. You want to use that pick to upgrade to the next tier.
Yeah, use it to enhance.
Yes.
People are like, whoa, 1.8. Oh, man, that's a first round pick.
Right.
Okay.
So, yes, that is exactly how you use a first round rookie pick in a trade. Most people, I believe, think that when they say, hey, I want to go from 1.8 to like 110, they're like, hey, and give me your second rounder to do that. Like, those trades just don't happen because nobody cares that they get Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnson or Zay Flowers. They don't feel it's worth an additional pick. And those trades just never get done. I mean, they got done 5 years ago. They got done 3 years ago because people are like, I got to go get my guy. But I think once people like took a look back, like Justin Jefferson and Jalen Waddle, all these guys go at the end of the first round. The guys that we reached up, the Jalen Ragers to go get when you were in SuperFlex drafts. You could have traded 1.1 or 1.2 theoretically for 1.7 and 110 and ended up with Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson for the 1-1.
It depends on the year. I don't think that style of trading is gone. I just think that this season, when you're looking at like, oh, I'm moving on. If I don't get this guy, I'm going to get Jordan. Like, I don't think it's that bad. Although the tiers do drop quickly again, even from this first round wide receiver group to the next tier, it gets a little gross. But you don't want to give up picks because none of these guys feel like must-haves. I'm going to throw a question at you, Says. Mm-hmm. All right. Jackson Smith and Jigba, you have him, right? So who would you rather? That's what we're going to play. Would you rather JSN or Chris Godwin? I want to get where the trade is here, or like what the value is currently for you for JSN. So how about where does he fall for you in the overall wide receiver?
So I think you picked the perfect guy to illustrate the point here between Dynasty and redraft, because if you look at the redraft rankings, Chris Godwin should go at least 2 rounds ahead of JSN, because you'd be a fool not to think that Chris Godwin's going to outproduce JSN this year. But where Dynasty players come in is the values flip-flop, right? The age, the allure of the unknown. So JSN is going to have a higher startup ADP and a lower redraft ADP. So hate to use the cop-out of team context, but if you're just telling me my team is neutral and which player I want, give me the player right now in the month of May that I could probably use to move around the board a little better. So give me the JSN with the higher market value. Because once the season starts and he has 3 targets and 2 targets in week 1 and 2, you'll hear all the buy low windows open up, but you're going to be a little the time of the year matters when I'm making the decision, and right now I want JSN.
So you're saying not so much because you think one will be more helpful, but rather you feel like this piece is more valuable just at this moment.
And now, so let's say that I'm in a startup and I draft JSN over Chris Godwin, And then when the draft is over, I realize I might be my quarterback 2 is a little weak. I have Jimmy Garoppolo. I might be able to take JSN, add him to Jimmy Garoppolo, and get up to, Deshaun Watson. Or some, whatever it is. Or someone,
yeah, that's fair.
Quarterback 11.
You're looking more at current value. JSN, would you rather? Straight value now. Devonta Smith.
Well, you and I, Devontae Smith, he's already done it, and he's still young. So, and Devontae Smith is a top 12 dynasty startup pick. So
I just thought of a good one. Wait, I just thought of a really good one. You ready for this? Because, I agree with you. I'm all day Devontae Smith ahead of him. Even, forget the values and all that. I just like him more. How about this one? JSN or Deebo Samuel? That's my back punk.
I mean, Deebo Samuel, the guy, dynasty players hate him. At first, I don't know why. He went in the second round of a redraft last night. I thought that was a little early, but you'd rather have JSN. Remember, Deebo is he's borderlining 27 years old at this point. I'm just looking it up.
Is he getting there? I think he's 26.
Yeah, but I'm saying I said borderline.
Well,
no, he's 20. He's 27.
Guy who went as high as the second round in a startup, although I thought that was a high pick. But in a redraft league, it's a third rounder in redraft, no problem.
Yeah, Deebo Samuel is 27 years old. He'll be 28 at the end of next season.
Wow. Okay. Well, he was an older rookie then.
Yep. His birthday's in January, so this entire 2023 season will be 27. So that's what I'm saying. This is the age where dynasty players are. You're not gonna a 24-year-old that's a 21-year-old, 22-year-old rookie is always gonna have more value than that.
So you've got JSN ahead of Deebo.
Yeah, JSN is going to be valued, right? Like, okay, so here's a better way to put it.
He's in that bad situation where he's not going to be
right, but he hasn't played a game yet. So when you're in dynasty startup leagues, if that's what you're doing, which a lot of us, hopefully you are, is you're going to see JSN be the decision point between the older veterans that have elite. You're going to see Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and JSN. That's the decisions that people are going to be making because all of the young wide receivers, the Garrett Wilsons, Olaves, they'll be gone. So once the older vets are available to you, that's where people are going to, it depends your flavor. Do you want Stephon Diggs at 30 years old or do you want JSN at 22 years old, 21 years old? Those are the decisions people are going to have to make.
All right. I'm going to take us back to just talk through the tiers and then I want to move on here with the next half of this draft. So we started out Bijan Robinson, pretty much tier 1, kind of by himself, I would say. And I'm putting Anthony Richardson tier 2 by himself as well. So I think Bijan Robinson, then Richardson. That's 1. That's 2. I think tier 3, you've got Gibbs, Stroud, and Young all together in a singular tier 3 zone for me, with arguably whichever one ahead of the other one, right? We can argue that Jahmyr Gibbs could be tops in that round, but I would say you always kind of still have to favor those starting running backs, right, for safety purposes. Then we get to tier 4, JSN. Would you include anybody else in tier 4 with JSN? Is Levis, Quentin Johnson, Addison, is that a tier? Zay Flowers, is that one tier for you? Or would you say JSN kind of almost in his own little tier and then we go to a next version?
In any sort of tight end premium format, I'm actually going to push Dalton Kincaid. I was persuaded yesterday by Mark Stopa that he belongs possibly ahead of those other 3 receivers. If you don't want to do it, I understand. In single PPR, and also talk about patience. You're going to have to be patient again. If you're not going to be patient, I would push Addison up. He'll give you some immediate production. But yeah, JSN probably how people are going to think about this is in his own tier at that point. But Kincaid in any premium format belongs right there with him.
That's really interesting, but that would have to definitely be not just tight end premium for me, but
super premium.
Yeah, super premium, which is 2 tight ends, which is a pretty crazy
or 2 PPR
format that not a lot of people are going to have. So I don't want to get too crazy in the formatting here.
Because just remember, Kincaid is more of he's not a blocker at all. He's going to be, eventually the Travis Kelce for Josh Allen. That's what the expectation is as far as maybe not as elite and Hall of Fame. We can't give a guy a Hall of Fame projection.
Yeah, rough comparator,
but that's the type of player that he is. So someone that he's going to be that go-to second receiver on a prolific passing offense.
If we could feel comfortable about that, I would move him up. But tight end bust rates are huge, historically high and super dangerous. And I think it's too risky to push a tight end ahead of first round wide receivers. Just my take.
Fair enough.
Too many busts. Too many OJ Howards out there for me.
Right, but these guys are more positionless nowadays. Gibbs, is he a receiver? Is he a running back? Kincaid, is he a receiver? Is he tight end? There's a lot more positionless football. It's like in the NBA, there used to be like, remember we used to call him a 5 or a 4. A center was a 5, a power forward was a 4. Now it's just like, hey, you're a swing man or you're a guard. You know, it's like there's not really, it's almost positionless. Like there's 6-7 guys playing point guard and there's 6-7 guys playing power forwards now. It's very positionless in football too.
Yeah, that's fair. But like I said, all of that aside, first round tight ends, danger, and you know, they just are. And they bust at a higher rate than you're comfortable with. I like these guys in the second round, not in the first round for the most part.
You're not going to get Kincaid in the second round, though. You're not going to. Yeah, he's locked in first round. Like I've never seen him go later than 1-9 in any format.
It's super early though. But yeah, I get it. He's a first round tight end, and when you think about Kincaid in the Cole Beasley role, you're like, ooh, I like that for my tight end, and that's great. I agree. And you know, when you think about the Bills, they've lacked that sort of big wide receiver that can catch that can take a touchdown, rip a touchdown out of the sky. They have these quick guys. They haven't had that monster outside of like their tight end, Dawson Knox, who is still there. So I don't know, but that's fine. But let's talk about the trio of wide receivers again, because they're generally who are going to be who falls here. You got Quentin Johnson, Jordan Addison, and Zay Flowers. A lot of people down on Zay Flowers. I'm not. I think the landing spot is fine. I like Zay Flowers in general. But you have, of that group, do you have Jordan Addison number 1 over? Addison goes to the Vikings, where he's locked into never being the WR1, at the very least, the WR2, but wildly productive college career. And outside of his diminutive stature, there's nothing about Jordan Addison that doesn't say this guy's going to be great in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan Addison, I think the expectation for him, given his size, and obviously you like his profile, that you just said it perfect, Geek, that there is no circumstance which he is going to be the target leader on this team. So that caps his ceiling. But going back to what we said in the very beginning of the podcast is that I don't need to hit a home run with every pick. If I hit a double, if I get on base with him, I'm very happy. So if he is Brandon Cooks, right, that type of career where, you know, he's wide receiver 18 most years. Maybe he has a wide receiver 11 year when he has more touchdowns. That is somebody in our 3 receiver leagues and a flex that I'm very happy to start. He might even, there's almost no chance that this player is a top 5 player. I mean, obviously there's always a chance, but almost, because he's also, how many times do we have 2 top 5 players on the same team? And if we're projecting Justin Jefferson to be the WR1 or top 5 wide receiver for the next 3 to 5 years, that means by default, Zay Flowers, the best he could probably do is wide receiver 15. Sorry, Addison. When I said Flowers, sorry about that. Addison could be, the best he could be is probably around wide receiver 15 to 18.
It's so boring.
Do you agree with that take?
Yes. Oh, somebody took a pick. So, it's boring, says, and I don't like it.
I know, but boring sometimes is okay. You know what I mean?
No, I'm trying to win leagues. It bores me. It makes me bored. I don't want guys like that. I feel like you can get guys like that pretty easily.
Well, you're a good dynasty player, so I'm surprised you're saying that.
No, because I could take any 1.7, 1.9 first round pick, and I can acquire a Chris like this style of player, a WR2. Like, what does it take to get actual Brandon Cooks? I can give a late second, and I can have him on my team. I don't need to draft. I'd rather draft for a little more upside, but it just bores me. He's not helping you win a tournament. He's not helping you win the league.
Yeah.
He's not causing you to win. He could help you win, but he's not causing you to win.
I'd play Dynasty a little bit differently. I mean, if you can get a couple of those elite guys, you do need these, these reliable every week starters. I mean, sometimes, like, for example, just take a player like Donovan Peoples-Jones, right, on the Cleveland Browns, who has these spike weeks. You never know when to start him. His best weeks come on your bench often. It's those guys, and it's a different draft pedigree. He wasn't a first-round pick, Peoples-Jones. He was a fifth-round pick, but you just never know when to start him. If Addison becomes a player that his floor is, 6 for 60, and you can get 12 fantasy points with the occasional touchdown, so it gives you 18. I mean, that there's a lot of value in that, and I understand why that's not exciting because he's not going to ever have 28 fantasy points in a week. But it's just, you have to come to terms with, you have to build your dynasty team one brick at a time sometimes.
I'm telling you, we're going to see running backs creeping their way up in here. It's too unsexy. And as the offseason rolls on, we will see other players make their way here. Addison, WR2. So we've got, do you have Addison ahead of Quentin Johnson in your, so let's talk about Quentin Johnson.
Yeah.
His situation. He goes to the Chargers. Chargers have Mike Williams. Chargers have Keenan Allen right now. Keenan Allen, still productive. Mike Williams in his prime pretty much. Both guys, injury histories. Palmer is there as well. So Quentin Johnson, though, prototypical size, speed for a wide receiver, seems to be almost a clone of Mike Williams in some ways. How do you see his outlook? Are you worried? I mean, I think his 1 year outlook is not great considering who's ahead of him, but pass happy team, great quarterback, has the potential for a career with Herbert, which should be a good thing.
I am always surprised that whenever a wide receiver is drafted by the Chiefs for Pat Mahomes, we get really excited. But when we get a first-round wide receiver that's playing with Justin Herbert, who we all agree is a top 5 real NFL quarterback, we're not like equally as excited. I'm not speaking to you specifically because you are, but I don't look at this as a problem for Mike Williams or Keenan Allen or even Quentin Johnson. This pushes Josh Palmer off the field. Right? I mean, the Chargers are going to play 3 wide receiver sets. Quentin Johnson will probably, he's going to be 3rd in the pecking order. It's not much different than JSN. But what do we know, what we've seen so far? Mike Williams is almost a virtual lock to miss 3 to 5 games. So you're going to get Quentin Johnson on the field as a full-time player there. And Keenan Allen is aging. So you have the floor of production as the wide receiver 3 in that offense with some wide receiver 2 weeks if Mike Williams misses time, playing with an elite quarterback for the next half decade minimum, and an aging player in Keenan Allen. So I don't see the downside here. I think that Quentin Johnson's almost too big to fail, and I'm not even worried about the 2 veteran wide receivers in that team. This just evaporates Josh Palmer. It was a 3rd-round pick. I mean, that's
Palmer
the guy
Dunzo.
who's out.
Yeah. Palmer's
so I
Dunzo. I think Quentin Johnson has a little bit of CeeDee Lamb-ish, I don't really want him. He's got these guys ahead of him.
Great
and
analogy.
Then 1 year happens, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, shit, this guy's gone. That guy got hurt. This guy's 32. And you're like, wait a minute. That went from bad to amazing. You could see a transformation. I think Quentin Johnson is probably the only wide receiver. There's a second one, but of this first 3 group, the only one that has the chance of being the WR1 on his own team, in the short term, or most likely one to become the WR1 on his team within a year or 2. Whereas JSN, he could get there, but he's going to be competing with DK Metcalf, who might always be that guy on his team. So, and we know Addison's not getting there. So I don't know. I mean, first round pedigree, 2nd wide receiver taken, teams had the choice of all of them. They chose him. So that to me is very impressive. Now let's talk about the last wide receiver who went in the first round.
Can I do a little victory lap right here? If you notice in this draft, I'm picking in the 12th position, even though I sold the pick. That's because I won this league. That's all.
Well done, by the way, and well done on selling that pick to help you win the league.
Yes.
And then giving up just an okay player. So let's talk about that player that just went pick 12 in Zay Flowers. I think I'm higher on Zay Flowers.
I'm with you.
Than most. So why did he drop here? Why is he dropping?
The only reason he dropped is because of the tight end premium. But would you take him over Addison, Quentin Johnson, or JSN? If not, then you're comfortable with his ADP.
I'm comfortable with. I would not take him over Quentin Johnson. I think that I might be in a thought to take him over Addison.
There you go.
I don't like the size of Addison. He's 173 pounds. It's too small.
Well, Zay Flowers isn't much bigger.
He's a little bigger. He's 182.
Let's see. I don't think so, man. I think he's
Wait,
I have he's
182.
5'10", 172.
Oh, they did me wrong on Sleeper. I got to go to Player Profiler.
Yeah.
Shout out.
Yeah,
it's because it says 182. Wait,
here
I'll
double check it on there too, because
Yeah. But nonetheless, I don't like the size issues of the wide receiver class in general.
You were sleeper was right. The internet was wrong. So it's
Okay.
5'9", 182.
Yeah, which is a little better than the 172 guy, but it's still a diminutive. But it's less like the scary numbers is when you get to the 170s and the 165s and all of that. That really scares the shit out of me. These guys are small, but
I mean,
I guess it's working in the NFL right now.
Zay Flowers, best comparable to Jahan Dotson. He's a go-get-it guy. I mean, I'm not overly worried about his size, his skill. And Tyler Lockett was another player that he's easily compared to. Zay Flowers is like a serious dog, man. Like he'll just go in there, and he's one of those guys you want on your football team. Now, the biggest concern with Zay Flowers is the landing spot, but I think what the market is the market acknowledges this, but it's not reacting to it. Is that the Ravens were one of the most run-heavy teams. But what do we know about the Ravens this year is that they abandoned Greg Roman in that run-heavy scheme, and they brought in Todd Monken, who was one of the past happiest teams when he was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the Jameis Winston YOLO ball, right? And then when he went to one of the non-NFL football leagues, he was throwing again. So people are like, yeah, I'll project a little bit more. I mean, why can't they have like 25 to 30% more passes? I mean, it's good to bet on that. I mean, they're literally, Lamar signed the long-term contract. They draft a first-round wide receiver. They bring in an offensive coordinator who likes to pass more than most in the NFL, and you're not going to project a huge jump in passes. I think we're going to see Lamar, instead of 28 passes a game or something like that, get up to like 38 passes a game in a lot of situations. So is it a guarantee? No, but I like Zay Flowers for that reason.
Love that you called it YOLO ball. It's hilarious. And I love that. And I totally agree. I think that people are missing the point. The Ravens are not running Lamar Jackson as much as they used to, and they're going to reduce his run load as much as they can. The guy's been getting hurt at the end of seasons. They're not the minute you start to see these rushing quarterbacks and Lamar is diminutive in his own regard, start to get hurt a lot. The teams are trying to protect him. You see him standing in there in the pocket. Hollywood Brown, are people forgetting that Hollywood Brown excelled and absolutely smashed under the Lamar Jackson regime? There is room for a wide receiver or two or even three to do well in this offense. Forget Odell Beckham. He's a one-year thing. He's not going to block anything. And Rashad Bateman hasn't shown a damn thing yet. Sorry, he has not. Yeah. And I'm not talking about when he gets hurt. I'm talking about when he's healthy and they had no one else to throw to. He still showed nothing. Maybe he just doesn't have it. I don't know, but I don't hate the land. I don't think Zay Flowers' landing spot is any worse than it. As a matter of fact, he's probably got a better chance of being the WR1 on his team in a hurry than a lot of these other guys do. So I'm all about it. I'm fine with Zay Flowers. I have him probably where he is here, which is fourth in the pecking order of wide receivers.
And that's the reason you don't trade up to go get a wide receiver. You don't, as my friend Jordan McNamara always says, you don't go get a wide receiver, you take one that falls to you.
Take whoever is there, leave the pecking order. Listen, some of these guys will bust, and that sucks, but what are you going to do? Like, if you think you could figure out who that is, you should be working for the NFL teams, not sitting here playing Dynasty Fantasy Football. They all went in the first round, meaning these guys were all generally good. They're good at their position, and they should be successful, except for the things that hold players back, which we probably can't know. So with that being said, I've got him fourth overall. Now we get to an interesting point in the draft. Now, you mentioned Dalton Kincaid. So we've sort of ranked our top 10 here. We're at ranking number 11, and I'll give some names that are available. Of course, the two, I don't get the Michael Mayer thing, whatever. But the two tight ends are available, Dalton Kincaid being the sexy one. And if we take a look at the running backs, Zach Charbonnet, Devin, I can't even say his name, right? Kendry Miller, Roshan Johnson, I think, is a massive sleeper for me.
I mean, it's funny. He's not going to be sleeping long. I mean, he's moving up, man. He's moving up.
This is what I'm saying. So of this group, is there a running... Now, Zach Charbonnet, worst possible landing spot. Is there a running back that is rising up that was worth taking, not just here, says, should we be taking Roshan ahead of some of these wide receivers? Should we have the balls to say, you know what, Roshan went to Chicago, the right team. He's the right size player. He doesn't have the draft capital necessarily.
Well, fourth round isn't bad. I mean, he was the first running back taken in the fourth round. That honor went to Dameon Pierce last year. You would say he was a good pick, right?
Here's what I'm going to say. The road to dynasty tiers is paved by fourth round running backs being taken in the first round of your rookie draft. Like that is a dangerous
he's not going in the first round. He's not going in the first round.
Well, maybe he is. This is what I'm saying. Does he rise up? Is he a first round pick? Should we take him ahead of these tight ends?
No, the draft capital suppresses him, and the perception on the tight ends is that this is a good class, and it's so hard to get tight ends. Roshan Johnson. So here's the first running back. This is per our friend Cody Carpentier at Carpentier NFL on Twitter. Here's a list of the first running back drafted in day 3 for the past few years. Roshan Johnson was this year. Damian Pierce last year. In 2021, it was Michael Carter. In 2020, it was Josh Kelly. In 2018, it was Nyheim Hines. So again, all players that are, it's a mix, but I'm saying is that these aren't zeros. These are players that are rostered in
not
Dynasty.
Zeros, but not one of them is somebody that you're like, damn, maybe outside of Damian Pierce at the end of the first round, where you're like, wow, I really wish I reached in the first round to get that guy.
Well, that's why I'm saying that Roshan Johnson belongs more in the 2.2 to 2.5 range than he does ahead of, tight ends. These weren't just second round tight ends. There was 9 tight ends taken in the first 3 rounds, and there was 6 of them taken in the top 40 picks.
It's bananas, the tight end position.
It was a good class. Keep it going here. I have to take a quick pee break. I'm going to be honest with you because I drank too much coffee, but keep going.
Good Lord. So throw me off. So the other running back that I wanted to mention who has the ability to rise up into the first round, maybe we might be seeing this by the end of the season, is Kendre Miller. And I think for me, Kendre is probably my favorite of this secondary group. Right. So I wanted to mention a few of these guys. Again, we're talking tight ends. Who wants to mess with a tight end here? That was a miraculously fast pee break, by the way.
Yeah, well, my bathroom's like literally right here. So.
Very impressive. So Kendre Miller, to me, is another guy. And he has that ability to rise up into the first round of your NFL draft. He's got the size that you want. He's got opportunity. He's going to a Saints team that probably we got a 6-week suspension on Kamara, but after that, they don't like running Kamara out there by himself anyway. Kamara starting to age. So what about Kendre Miller rising up to the end of the first round? He's a 3rd round pick, which is better than a 4th round pick.
Early
third, 2nd round? Did he go? No, early 3rd.
Early 3rd, 3.8. He went.
That is good, man. That's draft capital right there.
Yeah, all the good parts. Size, check mark. Draft capital, check mark. Landing spot, solid. It's going to be a little bit. The reason he's going, I've seen him go at 112.
He can't catch a pass, right? Is that his deal?
I mean, he's an NFL player. He'll be fine. I mean, he's not a zero in the passing game. But here he's going at like 112 or 2.122. And here's the reason is that I already think the Alvin Kamara suspension's baked into his ADP. If there was no Alvin Kamara suspension, he might even go a little bit later. Is that, remember, the Saints signed Jamal Williams. Now, Jamal Williams is a player that the NFL coaches like. We saw him on Hard Knock last year. We saw him lead the NFL in touchdowns. So playing time could be a little bit scarce for Miller early on, and that's not what drives a player into the first round in rookie dynasty drafts. So I think he's appropriately priced, and he's a player that's probably going to be really good for you in windows. And now think about this. Where would Kendre Miller get drafted in rookie drafts if Jamal Williams was out for the season this year?
I think
ahead of the wide receivers.
Yeah,
go ahead of the wide receivers.
It would be moving up even more. I don't know about ahead of the wide receivers.
Oh yes, if he was a starting running back on the Saints,
but Kamara's still there.
But let's say that I should have also caveated that Alvin Kamara gets a 6-game suspension.
He probably is still. He's rising up there, right?
Well, you see what I'm saying though. Yeah. His ADP has nothing to do with the player. His ADP has to do with the situation. It's the Alvin Kamara suspensions priced in, but also Jamal Williams being a coach's favorite and a touch eater is priced in. So he's appropriately priced on the 1-2 turn.
2 other running backs went early, and I think the most interesting one, again, I'm skipping Charbonnet. Sorry, your landing spot is just too horrific.
Where does Charbonnet go if Ken Walker was out for the year?
Charbonnet goes middle of the first round.
There you go.
He's going crazy high, but Kenny Walker is not out for the year.
Well, I'm
he's
just
still there.
Again,
and he's not going anywhere.
Situations
Isn't
change.
it funny that
That's all
Charbonnet, draft capital is like just as good as Kenny Walker, but whatever, we all think Kenny Walker's a guy. What a disaster.
One
for
guy
Walker.
did it on an NFL field. One guy has yet to do it on an NFL field.
I'm going to talk about this last guy who I think had a chance to rise up, but has some real question marks, and that's Devon Achane.
Devon Achane.
Achane, Achane.
Yeah.
So this guy's 5'9", 185 pounds, playing the running back position. That's the negative, right? Can catch a pass, super quick, all of that.
No, wait, super quick. Wait, hold on a second. The fastest running back in the class ran a 4.32. That is lightning speed. Now, he gets to the second level, he's gone. I mean, gone. There's no catching him. Throw on even YouTube highlights are not the way to watch film. And I don't claim to be a film grinder, but just watch him separate. It looks like a video game. It looks like he's on 1.5 speed and the rest of everyone else is on 1 speed once he breaks that. So that's what you're getting with him is this elite speed. He's only going to be a 5 to 10 touch player, but he can light it up with those touches. I see him going in the first round.
Really? So this is the guy that you see rising up.
I mean, I've seen him go in the first round from just because of the situation. He's on the perfect team, right?
Well, look what I highlighted over here. Look what's ahead of him on this team. Raheem Mostert, 31-year-old, injury prone. Jeff Wilson, journeyman, yeoman-like, never gonna carry a team. So Miami was one of those landing spots we were looking for. Any running back that went to Miami was going to be in a good spot because there's just no competition there for touches, really, outside of, like I said, these two guys who are these grinders who are just never going to be able to carry a workload. I don't think Raheem Mostert has a 20-touch game in his career. And so is he a first-rounder at 185 pounds? And is this gadget role, has there ever been a player who's sort of been like, oh, yeah, he plays that gadget role and it worked? Like, give me an example of a guy who's like this that worked out as a great fantasy asset. Like, give me how does this go?
So more of, again, these aren't one-to-one comparisons because there's size differences, but in the similar role of like the satellite back pass catcher, Danny Woodhead was a top 12 running back a couple of years in a row. Chris Thompson had a top 12 year. Again, not the exact same one-to-one comparison, but you're asking about guys that James White made a living as a top 12 fantasy running back in this type of a role.
I felt like all the names you said gave me like heartburn. I felt heartburn from all of them because, like, why is there no
Darren
example?
Sproles would be another guy that did it.
Yeah, but that Darren Sproles is like this guy. But like Darren Sproles had some good games. And he was, you plugged him into your flex and you were fine with it. Have times changed to the point where like a Darren Sproles, he was a guy I never drafted because I was
Sproles was a top 12 running back for like at least 2 times in his career, minimum. I think he might have even done it 3.
Sproles was a guy that when you drafted him, you had to keep him in your lineup. And he would pop off and have like win you the league that week kind of days.
And that's A-Chain.
But also there were a lot of just duds in the mix because the touchdowns don't come for guys like this as comfortably as they do for regular running backs who will score a touchdown every other game. And so, like, you just get into this highly volatile. I mean, is that what he's destined to be? This just volatile. Can the Dolphins figure out a role for the style of running back that like defies history?
Yeah, I mean, he'll have startable weeks. There'll be weeks where Raheem Mostert, who has not been able to stay healthy, is out, and it's him and Jeff Wilson. You're going to start A-Chain. There could be weeks where both of those guys are out. Jeff Wilson's had injury problems. So there's going to be clarified, obvious start weeks for him. Can you start him week 1? Probably not. You're probably going to miss a few good games from Devon A-Chain, but if you get 3 to 4 starting weeks, clarified weeks from him in your rookie season, that's good. He does have the commensurate upside. Geek, why don't we wrap here by just talking about maybe like one sleeper or one like must target guy in this range and one guy that you're totally avoiding, only because, and this will be a little shameless self-promotion. Anyone watching the stream, we're going to be on SiriusXM Channel 87, the Fantasy Sports Channel, in about an hour. So we're going to be doing some prep for that. I'll be with Nick Whalen. We have a ton of good guests coming on. So that little plug if you're watching this on the live.
There we go. I love it.
So
all
why
right,
don't we wrap up?
We've covered our top. We've covered our top 12.
Yeah.
And so Yeah, who are you? So give me a sleeper, somebody that you're kind of like keeping in your back pocket for your drafts that, maybe you're going to grab a little bit ahead of whatever their ADP winds up being. Who do you like late in this draft?
So it's not late, and the definition of sleeper is not necessarily because any sharp dynasty players know about all these guys nowadays. But two guys I like in the second round, Tajay Spears, who was drafted, who was out of Tulane, 2 ACL injuries, not one, 2 ACL injuries.
Another tiny running back,
right? So, but elite pass catcher, elite speed, got the draft capital. I like the landing spot, complimenting Derrick Henry. I think that he is going to have immediate floor value with like that Dontrell Hilliard had last year. You can get him in the middle of the second round. I saw him go in the first round the other day. Don't do that. But I like him, and the fact that the Titans took him with the third round to me says that he cleared the medicals. So I do like him in the pass catching role, complimenting Derrick Henry. And if Derrick Henry misses a game here and there, which not likely, but I think that this is a player that you could have, and if you're in a deep league, you're going to be happy you have him. And the other player I like is Chase Brown. Draft capital wasn't great. It landed in a perfect spot on the Cincinnati Bengals, where he's got the typical, you could pull his card up, Geek, Chase Brown.
Yeah, here we go.
Up on the Bengals.
Yes.
A little bit more prototypical size. I mean, it's still a little light at 205, but the 5'11", he's stout, and he's number 2 immediately on the depth chart. And there's some rumors swirling around that Joe Mixon may not be on the roster. That doesn't mean that Chase Brown, a 5th-round pick, is going to ascend to the RB1. They'd probably bring in another veteran. But give me the RB2 on that team, and in the late second round, early third round, that's a good pick.
Yeah, you want to. So my approach to drafting in general is, once draft capital is king. You want these, especially first round wide receiver draft capital is going to be better than later round running back draft capital, regardless. And then with my second round picks, I'm loading up on not just these running backs, these nameless, faceless, backup running back types that all got drafted. I don't care who it is. If they're 5, 6 first, I want those kind of guys who are backups in situations, and then just by hitting up all those tight ends. I think one of the interesting things for the second round of my sleeper will be just load up on these early pick tight ends in the second round. Some of them are going to hit, some of them are going to hit. The bust rate is high on tight ends, but who cares? Take a few of them with your second, your third round picks, and some of them are going to work out. And like, if you're a tight end drafted in the first 2 rounds and you're there for me, and I'm in the late second round of my dynasty startup draft, I'm taking you. I don't care what your name is.
Here's another, and again, I love that approach. And here's another, if you don't like to draft tight ends, a way to do it is, and this goes for non-premium formats only, but single PPR for everyone, is that people are going to grow frustrated. And a lot of these guys, like Geek said, take a year or two to develop. So let someone else draft them. You take the running backs there, and then when they drop them, you'll be able to pick them up. Or if they have a bad first year, you could trade for them for like a 3rd round pick. So there it is, Geek.
I love it. All right, good stuff. Thank you for being with me as always, Alan. It's like the crew back together again. Always feels good flexing the old fantasy football Dynasty SuperFlex muscles here.
Let's do it.
So we're getting into it now. We've got best ball kicking off, best ball season now. The post-draft stuff is all starting. This is an exciting time. Let's we're going to be doing a lot of coverage for all of this stuff, keeping them coming once a week. Just looking at best ball, looking at dynasty rankings, all this good stuff. So for Seslowski, follow him at Alan Seslowski. Make sure to check him out on Sirius Radio later today. Most day, you on every day now at this point? It's a lot of sets.
No, I was just so we're on every day starting in after July 4th, I believe, or not every day, but like once a week. And they just brought us back during baseball season on the radio just to cover the draft. We were on most of last week, the weekend, and today will be the last day that I'm on before they switch back to baseball.
Perfect. And for my DFS Army people, be on the lookout. I will be dropping full SuperFlex Dynasty rankings within the next few days. Just a full straight rankings list.
Get them up, man. Players. People have their drafts. Get those rankings up.
Yeah, we got to get them out there. We'll have our rookie rankings up. Early rankings going to change a ton, so be careful if you're drafting early. And we will see you guys next time.